Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare blew away both critics and players when it released in 2007, and it went on to spawn one of the largest trilogies in video game history. After 10 years, the Modern Warfare trilogy is still held in high regard for its groundbreaking gameplay, but what about the story? Well, we here at Suggestive Gaming figured now would be a good time to take another look. This is what you need to know about the Call of Duty Modern Warfare storyline. The story begins in 2011, where a group of ultra-nationalists in Russia are engaging in a civil war with the government. In order to distract the United States from intervening, one ultra-nationalist, Imran Zakhaev, funds a coup in the Middle East to catch their attention, organized by Khaled al-Assad, military commander and ally of Zakhaev. Meanwhile, Sergeant John Soap McTavish joins the Bravo team of the British Army's Special Air Service. Soap, along with the other Bravo team members, Lieutenant Gaz and Captain John Price, are then sent to the Bering Strait to intercept a freighter to search for a suspected nuclear package. After infiltrating the cargo hold, the team find a nuclear warhead covered in Arabic writing. They are then attacked by enemy fighters, but are able to narrowly escape with the ship manifest pointing to al-Assad as the owner of the package containing the warhead. Meanwhile, al-Assad continues his revolution by killing the president of a Middle Eastern country, Yasser al-Fulani, on national television. Afterwards, Soap, Gaz, and Price, along with Russian loyalists led by the team's old friend Sergeant Komarov, set off to rescue the Russian informant who supplied them with the information about the cargo ship. Meanwhile, al-Fulani's death has caused the US Marine Corps to send in their First Force recon team to the Middle East in search of al-Assad. They believe him to be in a TV station broadcasting propaganda, but upon clearing and invading the building, they find no sign of him, but instead find his broadcast to be a recording. Elsewhere, Bravo team has successfully found and rescued their Russian informant, but upon escaping, their helicopter is shot down. Fleeing on foot, they eventually make their way to a second escape helicopter thanks to friendly air support. Back in the Middle East, the First Force recon team end up finding and recovering a tank, codenamed Warpig, and head to the capital city where they believe al-Assad has fled to. There they are informed that there is a nuclear warhead in the area. They prepare to evacuate, but their escort is shot down. They go back in to save her, but do not escape in time before the nuclear bomb goes off, killing the team along with all other servicemen in the area. One member of the team, Griggs, survives as he was separated from the team. The informant, Nikolai, tells Price about al-Assad's safe house in Azerbaijan. The SAS head there and eventually find al-Assad. Price interrogates him, and he informs the SAS that the true owner of the nuclear package wasn't him, but Zakhaev. Price then executes al-Assad. As it turns out, Price was once assigned to assassinate Zakhaev with his former commanding officer, Captain McMillan. However, the plan failed, and Price only managed to sever Zakhaev's arm. Expecting him to die of blood loss, the two evacuated, but not before McMillan lost his leg, causing Price to carry him out. The SAS, USMC, and Russian loyalists then set out on a joint mission to try to capture Zakhaev's son Viktor in order to lead them to his father. They give chase and he is eventually cornered on top of a building. However, in order to avoid capture, he shoots himself before Soap can restrain him. Angered by the death of his son, Zakhaev threatens to launch nukes at the US. Price leads a joint British-American operation to stop this. After invading the facility, the team see 2 nuclear missiles being launched towards the US with a potential of killing over 40 million civilians. They reach the control room and Soap uses abort codes provided by command to destroy the missiles in flight. The team then reach a vehicle depot and make their escape using Russian trucks. Followed by enemy vehicles, the team escape down a Russian motorway. However, an oil tanker explodes, leaving everyone except Griggs incapacitated. Griggs drags Soap to safety, but is shot by Zakhaev's guards in the process, killing him. Zakhaev himself eventually kills Gaz, but Price is able to give Soap his gun, allowing Soap to shoot Zakhaev and his guards. Komarov and the Russian loyalists arrive shortly thereafter to take Soap and Price back to safety. The media then arrive to cover up the story as a series of nuclear tests in Russia. 5 years later, the ultra-nationalists have successfully seized control of Russia, and Zakhaev has since become seen as a martyr by the group. One of his former lieutenants, Vladimir Makarov, has also started staging various terrorist attacks against Europe. U.S. Army Ranger Joseph Allen impresses the leader of a special ops team, Task Force 141, General Shepard, who recruits him as a CIA operative and tasks him with joining Makarov's terrorist organization as an undercover agent. Meanwhile, the SAS sends Soap McTavish and Sergeant Gary Roach Sanderson to recover an attack characterization system module from a downed satellite at a Russian airbase. The two are compromised and attacked by enemy forces, but manage to escape with the module. Later, Allen, having joined Makarov's ranks, participates in a massacre of civilians in a Moscow airport. Makarov instructs his crew to speak English and use NATO weapons to convince the Russians that this was an attack on them by Americans. To further cement this, Makarov kills Allen, whose true identity as a CIA agent he had known. They leave Allen's body behind to be identified as American, causing Russia to retaliate with a surprise attack on the US, revealing that the ACS module Soap and Roach retrieved was compromised. This invasion starts World War III. Army Rangers Sergeant Foley, Corporal Dunn, and Private James Ramirez, Allen's replacement, are sent to defend Washington, D.C. Task Force 141 shifts their attention to Makarov and heads off to Rio de Janeiro to capture and interrogate Makarov's contact, Alejandro Rojas. Rojas reveals that the Russians are holding one of Makarov's most hated enemies, whom they codename Prisoner 627. The group are left stranded due to air support being cut by the invasion in the US, but are later rescued by Soap with help from the Russian informant he had previously helped rescue, Nikolai. Soap, convinced that breaking out Prisoner 627 will draw out Makarov, leads Task Force 141 to the Gulag, the prison where 627 was being held, to break him out. Upon doing so, they find out that he is none other than Captain Price, who was captured during a raid on an ultranationalist base called Operation Kingfish 3 years earlier. The group escape the prison, and Price agrees to help Task Force 141 to track down Makarov. Believing that something extreme must be done to end the war in the US, Price convinces Task Force 141 to infiltrate a Russian submarine base where he ignores orders and hijacks a Russian nuclear sub. He uses it to launch an ICBM at Washington, D.C., but programs the warhead to explode in the atmosphere, destroying the International Space Station, sparing Washington from the attack, but creating an electromagnetic pulse stopping both US and Russian militaries in their tracks. In D.C., Sergeant Foley and his team discover that the Air Force intends to carpet bomb the Capitol, believing it to be lost to the Russians. The team fight their way to the roof of the White House and set off green flares just as the fighters arrive, indicating that the city is in fact not lost and effectively calling off the attack. Meanwhile, Task Force 141 is informed of 2 possible locations Makarov might be hiding, and the team splits up to search both. Soap and Price go to an aircraft scrapyard in Afghanistan, and Roach and Ghost head to a safe house in the Caucasus Mountains. The safe house turns out to be a trap, but Roach and Ghost are able to fight their way through and obtain vital intelligence containing Makarov's entire plan. General Shepard arrives to retrieve the intelligence, then kills both Roach and Ghost, betraying them to take all the glory for himself, intending to become a war hero and gain the support of the American populace. Price and Soap are able to avoid an ambush by Shepard's Shadow Company, as well as what's left of the ultranationalists, who converge and engage in battle with each other. They get in contact with Makarov, who reveals Shepard's location to them. The two agree to go find him in Afghanistan to take him out in one final suicide mission. They arrive at his base, but Shepard attempts to escape in a boat. They give chase, and Price eventually shoots down a helicopter Shepard attempts to use to escape. The two then fall down a waterfall. Washing up on land, a wounded Soap attempts to chase Shepard, but he is bested as Shepard stabs him. Just as he is about to shoot Soap, Price tackles him and the two fight. Soap pulls the knife out from his own chest and throws it at Shepard, impaling his eye, killing him instantly. Nikolai arrives for the extraction, and the three head out. Price warns Nikolai that by killing a US Army general, the two are now international fugitives, but Nikolai tells him he knows of a safe place they can go. Meanwhile, World War III continues, and Team Metal, a US Army Delta team, are sent to New York to hijack a Russian submarine to use it against its own fleet to drive the Russian army out of the city. Nikolai arrives at a safe house in India run by his loyalist allies with Soap and Price. They begin to give an unconscious Soap medical attention, but shortly thereafter Makarov's forces invade and storm the safe house. Nikolai's best soldier, Yuri, helps Price and Nikolai escape while keeping Soap alive, and what remains of Task Force 141 go into hiding while Makarov does the same. 2 months later, Boris Vashevsky, the Russian president, announces at a summit to make peace with the United States. This is foiled by Makarov, however, whose men hijack the president's plane on the way. Makarov kidnaps the president and plans to abduct and torture his daughter in order to force him to hand over the launch codes for Russia's nuclear arsenal. Meanwhile, Soap is recovered enough to rejoin the fight, and he and Yuri, along with help from Macmillan, Price's former commanding officer, trace Makarov's actions to an arms deal in Sierra Leone. However, they are unable to intercept the cargo from the deal, and it is instead distributed to Paris, Berlin, and London, where it is revealed to be biochemical weapons, which are detonated, killing civilians across Europe. The Russian army uses these attacks as openings to invade the various countries, and Team Metal is deployed to Hamburg to rescue the US vice president. They are then supplied intel by Price, who obtained the information from a warlord involved in the chemical attacks. The intel sends them to Paris to capture a Russian bomb maker named Volk. The team capture Volk and escape Paris as the Eiffel Tower collapses due to a bombing run. They learn of Makarov's location from Volk, the Hotel Lustig in Prague. They inform Price of this, and his team invade the city. There, the group are reunited with Komarov, who is currently leading a local resistance, and they set off to try to assassinate Makarov. The plan goes south when Komarov is taken hostage and strapped with explosives, and Price narrowly escapes the hotel as they are detonated, killing Komarov. Makarov also reveals that he knows Yuri, and had predicted the sniping location he and Soap are occupying, and rigged that with explosives as well. They detonate, and Soap pushes Yuri to avoid the explosion. However, as he falls, a large chunk of debris falls on him, reopening his stab wound from Shepard. Price arrives and removes the debris from Soap, and helps Yuri to his feet. Yuri carries Soap as Price shoots a path through Makarov's men. Soap, dying from blood loss, tells Price of Yuri and Makarov's relationship in his final moments. Price leaves Soap's body, taking his journal and dog tags, and confronts Yuri at gunpoint, demanding him to explain his connection with Makarov. Yuri reveals that he was a former ultranationalist who befriended Makarov. He was with Makarov during the detonation of the nuclear bomb in the Middle East that killed Shepard's men, and the horror of the event caused him to turn on Makarov and attempt to stop the massacre at the airport years later. He was found out, however, and was shot by Makarov before the attack. Price is convinced that the two are fighting for the same thing and keeps his alliance with Yuri, and the two invade Makarov's castle near Prague. There, they discover where the Russian president is being held captive. They relay the information to Team Metal, who are able to save the president and his daughter before Makarov is able to get the nuclear launch codes. Several members of the team are killed during the rescue, but their efforts led to the safety of the president and his ending of the conflict between Russia and the US, putting an end to World War III. 3 months later, Price and Yuri finally track Makarov to a hotel on the Arabian Peninsula. There, the two are able to invade the hotel, and once at the top, see Makarov escaping to his helicopter on the roof. Another helicopter shoots the hotel, however, and the roof begins to collapse. After regaining his footing, Price finds Yuri pinned down and impaled by a piece of debris. He tells Price to leave him and not let Makarov get away, and Price runs to catch up to Makarov. Makarov boards his helicopter, but Price is able to jump on and kill the two pilots. This causes the chopper to crash back onto the roof. Makarov and Price, climbing out of the wreckage, race to a Desert Eagle they see on the ground, with Makarov getting to it first. He holds the gun up, about to shoot Price, when he is subsequently shot in the shoulder by Yuri. Taken by surprise, Makarov turns around and shoots Yuri, finally killing him. Price takes advantage of his friend's final distraction and tackles Makarov, wrapping a steel cable around his throat and breaking through the glass beneath them, causing Makarov to die by hanging. Price falls to the floor below and survives. He sits up and gazes upon Makarov's hanging, lifeless body. He quietly takes out a cigar and lights it. In the distance, sirens are heard as the police begin to arrive at the scene. This is the last we see of John Price, with his vengeance fulfilled, but his future unknown. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching this episode of What You Need to Know. If you enjoyed it, please give us a like and subscribe for more story summaries in the future, and make sure you click that bell. If you have any suggestions of other series you'd like us to cover, please leave it in a comment and let us know. See you next time!